Welcome back. The second mindset we shall be handling here is the stewardship mindset, or the manager mindset. In this section, we shall be touching three areas: the manager mindset, the kingdom mindset, and the servant leader mindset. The steward or the manager's mindset. The word steward in the Bible is the word manager, and God looks at us from that perspective. And I want to also plant in our minds that stewardship mindset, because as a leader, until you develop that stewardship mindset, you can never excel. In the book of Luke chapter 12, from verse 42, the Bible recounts a story of a steward, or it gives an illustration of stewardship. It says, "And the Lord said, Who then is that faithful and wise steward, whom his Lord shall make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Of a truth I say unto you, then he will make him ruler over all that he hath. But if that servant say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to beat them, the men servant and maidens, and to eat and drink, and to be drunken, the Lord of that servant, or the boss of that servant, will come in a day when he looketh not for him, and at an hour when he is not aware, and will cut him asunder, and will appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. And that servant which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. But he that knew it not, and did commit things worthy of stripes, shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required, and to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more." This is an illustration of stewardship. Let's see some things from this passage. Jesus said, gives an illustration of a boss who goes on travel and leaves the manager to manage the enterprise. And when the manager begins to beat the junior staff, torment them, use other kind of parameters to rule, and drink and get drunk, he says he shall be ousted from his position, because what is expected of a manager is absolute accountability. In 2 Corinthians, let's see 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 10. I'm talking to leaders and you are one. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 10. King James Bible says, "He that ministereth seed to the sower, both ministers bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruit of your righteousness." Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I want to use a word NIV uses here. It says, "He who supplies seed to the sower." Let's go back to the King James Version. So NIV uses the word supplied. King James uses the word ministered. Let's look at it from this light. It says, the same person who supplies seed to the sower both supplies bread for your food. The seed means the belly, that which is used to make bread, the seed of barley or maize or whatever that is planted, that is used to make bread. Okay, he says God, who supplies that seed to that sower, had the bread eater in mind. The sower needed seed and prayed, "Oh God, provide." God was providing the seed to the sower, not for the sower's intent alone. God had the bread eater at heart. So when the sower came in, the sower may not have prayed that much. The bread eater may have cried so much, "Oh God, provide me bread." But the sower came and said, "Lord, I don't have seed." Maybe he spoke just in faith, and God gave him seed. It will be stupidity for this sower to think that God gave him this seed for himself. The sower now is the manager who invests that seed in the ground and provides bread to the eater and multiply the seed of other sowers. So a manager is a custodian. God gives the manager something to keep, to use for others. Who is a manager then? A manager is one to whom resources are given to evenly distribute for the betterment of the corporation or organization. A manager is one whom resources are given to evenly distribute and manage for the betterment of the corporation or organization. In the Bible, there are 3 levels of servitude. We had slaves, we had servants, and then we had stewards or managers. And sons were also at the steward level. The Bible uses the 3 to refer to our service to him. The movement from one level of service to the other depends on what that servant says in his heart. Amen. When we move from a slave to servant to managers, the Bible says, as long as the heir to the throne is a child, it different not from a servant. So when we serve faithfully, we move from a servant to a steward to a manager. Joseph was sold as a slave. He moved from a slave to a servant in Potiphar's house, and somehow after a while moved from a servant to the manager who managed everything in Potiphar's house. Service is heart condition and not just expertise. What often comes to your mind? You can determine what comes to the mind of the subordinate by the quality of his service. Let us see some duties of a manager. Number 1, a manager prepares a budget for the corporation, hands it to the chief executive officer or the board of directors for reviewing an endorsement and disbursement. The manager understands when liquid cash is capital or is profit. I used to say until liquid cash is invested, is not yet profit. And that's true. So the manager understands when liquid cash, the cash at hand, is either profit or is just still capital. So he's given a budget. He prepares a budget and hands to the corporation. Number 2, a manager is not one only because he evenly distributes the finances. He is because he has concern for the well-being of the workers. A manager is one who has well-being, concern for the well-being of the workers. Number 3, a manager does not play with leftovers. A good manager knows how to manage resources. He doesn't waste resources. Yes, a good manager does not waste resources. Number 4, a manager gives detailed account of all he has been given for disbursement. And God's original plan is to see that we manage his resources very, very well. Let us look at one steward, a kingdom steward, Eliezer. Our case study of this manager of servant, manager of Abraham. He was Abraham's servant and Abraham's manager. He managed Abraham's resources. It was Eliezer whom Abraham sent to go and get Isaac a wife. Remember, Eliezer came forth in Genesis chapter 15 verse 2 to 4 when Abraham cried, "Shall Eliezer my servant be my heir?" Because Eliezer was so close to Abraham and had served him that he became manager of his all his servants. His 318 man servants that were with him were controlled by Eliezer. Eliezer means God is help. Because of fidelity in Eliezer, Abraham began considering of making him his heir, since he had no child. And he was afraid and said, "Oh, shall Eliezer be my heir?" Because Eliezer was so faithful, such that Abraham was considering, okay, if I don't have a child finally, then I'll make Eliezer my heir and he will succeed my properties. In Genesis chapter 24 from verse 2 to 40 or to 65, the Bible exposes the full stewardship potential of Eliezer. He grew from slave from Damascus to servant and to steward or manager. He was a slave taken from Damascus. He was always there with Abraham. He was almost developing a sonship status by servitude. Oh God, I love that. Eliezer was almost developing a sonship status just by servitude, by service, such that this childless Abraham at the time was considering how to do and make him heir. Let's see some things we can note here. He developed integrity such that Abraham so trusted him to put under him all his substance. It is written in Genesis 24 verse 2, "And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house that ruled over all that he had, Put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh." That was Eliezer. It says he had rule over all that Abraham had. He further trusted him to send him to fetch a wife for Isaac. Eliezer was a good steward, a good manager. Let me pause to say some things about manager, the God steward. God is not just looking for people to bless, He's looking for people to make them a blessing. He's looking for managers. And you in the house of God, there are many things God has put around you, but He did not put it for you. He put those things around you for others. Look at it from this angle. Abraham became rich, and Eliezer was there to manage Abraham's property. They were not his. If you are rich, God gave that riches. You are just a steward to the manifold riches. So if you see the poor going poor, the church and the work of the Lord going down, the reason He opened that door for you, not because you're a prayer giant, not because you prayed the highest, but He knew, as the Bible says, God who provides bread or supplies bread to the eater, before He supplies the bread to the eater, He supplies seed to the sower. While He was supplying seed to the sower, He had the bread eater at heart. It would be stupid, or it would be stupidity for the steward or the sower to plant the seed, harvest it, consume it all, and not knowing that the seed was provided to him for the purpose of the person who had cried for bread, that he may sow, multiply it, and then the bread eater will benefit, because the bread eater's prayer has been God provide. And since God provides through a man to reach out to others, sometimes He will not provide evenly to everybody, but He provides through one person. And if that person becomes a bad manager of that resources, it stops the flow. Whatever God has provided to you is for the purpose of the prayers of others. I used to tell people concerning even the grace and the giftings and the spiritual gifts God has planted in my life is for the purpose of others. So I do it with that humility, do it with expecting nothing in return, do it expecting no seed, no other thing in return. People can bless me, thank God, I am so glad and I'm happy, but I am a storekeeper, I am a steward, I'm just a manager, a custodian of this, that each time God wants to take it and reach out to others, He has that freedom to use me to reach out to others. Let's look again at Eliezer. He was very obedient. He was an obedient manager and very diligent and very hardworking. We also see another characteristic of Eliezer. He was swift to transfer loyalty from Abraham to Isaac. For she had said, read the scripture, for she had said unto the servant, what man is this that walketh in the field? This is when Eliezer was coming back with Rebekah and saw Isaac in the field. Listen to what Eliezer said. And the servant had said, it is my master. Not Abraham now. Abraham was still alive. Isaac was throwing in the field. And Eliezer said, that is my master. He did not say that's my master's son. He said, that is my master. And therefore she took a veil and covered her face. And the servant told Isaac all things he had done. He did not tell Abraham. Abraham sent him to go and fetch a wife for Isaac. When he came and met Isaac in the field meditating, he pointed and said, that is my boss. So Eliezer was so humble a servant and a manager, too swift to transfer loyalty from Abraham to Isaac. He never said that's my master's son. He said that is my master. He never permitted the elevation to get into his head. He never permitted his promotion to get into his head, that he contested like Lucifer, who was created an angel, raised an archangel, given a position before the Lord, and wanted to contest that position and become God himself, and he was cast down and had become Satan. Though he came from Damascus, Eliezer came from Damascus, yet he prayed to his master's God. The people of Damascus then were worshipping idols, but because he came under Abraham as a faithful steward, he prayed to Abraham's God, which means he bought Abraham's philosophy. God has called you as a manager of his resources in his house. So you are a leader and a manager. Until you develop this manager mindset, that all that he has put around me, my academics, the blessings around me, my health and everything, my energy, are all resources used for service. My finances, my hobnobbing or my connections with great minds, all are just resources put in the hands, at the disposition of a manager to well manage it for kingdom purpose. So you're a kingdom manager. Another example of a kingdom manager was Joseph. Joseph was a faithful steward. He came to the house of Potiphar as a slave, bound in chains, but later became the manager over all of Potiphar's house. It is written, but he refused and said unto his master's wife, that is to Potiphar's wife, Potipharah, says, behold, my master wortheth not what is with me in the house, and he had committed all that he had to my hands. There is none greater in this house than I, neither had he kept back anything from me, but you, because thou art his wife. How then can I do so such great wickedness and sin against God. There were two major reasons for the orphan promotion in Joseph's life. Number one, the God of his father made all that he did to prosper until Potiphar could see it. Number two, Joseph feared God and lived righteously. He maintained game ethics even at adverse season. Joseph preferred a good manager. He preferred to go to prison than to violate his moral ethic and to violate the game ethic. He did not permit logic to replace his conviction. It was very logical for him to gain more strength in that house to sleep with that woman, because despite the fact that he was the manager and managed everything, but the woman had expressed rights over him. And so if he slept with that woman, logic would say he could become and rule more over everything in Potiphar's house. But he said, logic cannot rule my conviction. He maintained the big picture and never allowed the role to replace the goal. He never allowed the role to replace the goal. There is this question: what if Joseph slept with Potiphar's wife and was not discovered? Oh yes, some people will say, praise the Lord, he will become a great man. But nemesis will always catch with us when we think that we are smart. As a good manager, it may be very advantageous to do it the wrong way, but as long as it's not ethical, it should not. We see another thing about Joseph. He initiated talks with the members of his team. He was a good coach or team leader with eye contacts. When they entered into the prison, he had eye contacts enough to know that these people were sad. He was made the manager. Wherever he entered, he was made the manager. And a good manager has eye contacts. He had eye contacts with the butler and the baker and knew that something was wrong somewhere, and he had to talk with them, and then he revealed their dreams to them. He had capacity to interpret dreams. He was not such a leader who dreams only, or whose dreams only count. No, some leaders concentrate on their dreams, and their dreams alone count. They don't believe in the dreams of others, and so they cannot interpret the dreams of others because they only believe in their own dreams. No, Joseph was a dreamer and a dream interpreter. He believed in his dreams and he believed in another person's dream. So a good leader, a good manager believes in his dreams and believes in another person's dream. Until a leader learns to interpret the dreams of the subordinate, he can't understand why they behave the way they do. You must interpret their dreams and synchronize them to the big picture. Come back to Grace Faith Mission. There are a lot of people with varying dreams, and what I do is to give interpretation to these dreams and see how it goes into and fits into the big picture of the mandate God has given us. How can this dream be so synchronized into the big picture? Because God has given us a big picture. He's given me a dream, but He's given us a big picture that the dreams can synchronize and we achieve that great dream. How do their dreams fit the big picture? That's the leader's concern. If you're a leader who is frightened by the dreams of others, then you have a problem and have not had a big dream. Pharaoh's dream was only a portion of Joseph's dream. Joseph dreamed of saving lives. Pharaoh dreamed of catastrophe. Joseph interpreted the dream of Pharaoh and fitted in his dreams to save lives. Another thing you could know about Joseph is Joseph foresaw fallen stock and decided to stock food for crisis moment. This is what I call good pessimism. Joseph realized that stock was going to fall. Yes, there were 7 years of increase, abundance, but there will be 7 years of famine that will wipe off the memories of the years of abundance, just probably in 2-3 years. And Joseph decided to stock food because waste is a product of poverty. He decided to stock food and prevent waste to catch up with the days of pains. There are people who have a faint view of faith. They tell you in the present God will provide tomorrow, and they eat the present, damage the present, not thinking that some days can become tough. A great leader is one who is to some percentage pessimistic, who fears of rainy days and plans for rainy days. All those leaders who are too optimistic of tomorrow and don't do plans for tomorrow are only presumptuous. They are not leaders. They are only presumptuous. If you cannot save 10,000 today because you fear that tomorrow something might happen and you need that 10,000 francs, then you're a bad leader. If there is a faith that keeps telling you all will be well tomorrow, everything will be fine tomorrow, so you don't need anything, tomorrow will provide for itself, then you are a bad leader and a bad Christian. Another thing we should know about Joseph's kingdom stewardship is purpose at times can be a frameless and pictureless intuition. I read again. Purpose at times can be a frameless and pictureless intuitive conviction that guides someone's action unto fruition. Take it again. Purpose at times can be a frameless and pictureless intuitive conviction that guides someone's action unto fruition. Yes, there are times when there's a picture within you, but that picture is, or that intuition, that conviction has no real picture you could lay your hands. That's how purpose is. You just sense that this is the direction. You just sense that this is what you ought to do. But the picture is not very clear, but it's so strong in your conviction. Until famine came, then could the picture of Joseph's purpose to preserve life be seen. Joseph had a picture, people bowing down to him, but the big picture was not very clear until he entered into that place, into Egypt, and that famine came. Then the big picture now became very, very clear. Moses' purpose as a deliverer was pictureless, was just a pictureless intuition. Something kept telling this child, I'm a deliverer, but he never had a broad picture of that which. And you don't sit, a leader does not sit on one spot waiting to see the broad picture, the full picture. As you keep going, the picture keeps getting enlarged and enlarged and enlarged. Oftentimes we can't account for why we do what we do, because our intuition has gotten grip of purpose, but we have not seen the big picture. Joseph projected the interest of his Lord, Pharaoh. A good manager will project the interest of his Lord. He bound the people to Pharaoh and made them look up to Pharaoh. When Joseph interpreted the dream, he said, let this be done, let food be stocked. And the Bible says in Genesis chapter 17 or chapter 47 from verse 12 to 20 that Joseph stocked food in the name of Potiphar, or in the name of Pharaoh. He stocked food, he bought food and stock and created quotas, and people stocked the food. When it came the time to sell, he bought lands through this food, and all the lands he bought, it was in the name of Pharaoh. Something in leadership influence. When a subordinate, a manager, serves his superior for the interest of his superior, he grows higher and better. When you are in the department, you're a pastor, you are serving that mission, and you are working and linking the people to the values of the mission, then you're a good pastor. If you begin to link the people to your personal values, to your personal liking, then you're a poor pastor. We are a mission. If a leader in the local assembly, a leader in a department begins to link the people to the values and to the vision of the great picture, then that is good stewardship. And lastly, we'll see the stewardship of Jesus. Jesus teaches on kingdom stewardship. But let me make this strong statement. The problems of institutions are not underdeveloped followers as they are underdeveloped leaders. You have a lot of problem with the institutions, and their problems are not underdeveloped followers but underdeveloped leaders. I pray that we have more developed leaders. The primary purpose of kingdom stewardship is service. In earthly philosophy, it is 80% oversight and 20% service, but in kingdom it is 80% service and 20% supervision. No man can successfully oversee and manage a project who by service has not been an expert in that field. A lot of governments and officials, mostly in Africa, are bereft with this situation where they take people who did theories in schools and put them leaders in and heads in departments who have no practical expertise in that field. And what do? They end up destroying the whole thing, and the subordinates are the experts. But they are bound to listen to the boss, who is a novice, absolute block-headed novice. Kingdom service involves execution of duty and accountability. So for a believer to be a good manager of God's resources, he must be willing to do the service of things and people. You must serve things and you must serve people. The kingdom definition of human resource management is the science of understanding people, caring and developing them, and organizing them for kingdom productivity. Let me define to you the human resource management definition of the kingdom definition of human resource management. Well, in the secular definition it may mean another thing, but in kingdom, this is the definition of human resource management. Is the science of understanding people, caring and developing them, and organizing them for kingdom productivity. By understanding, we mean that the first thing that must run in the mind of the leader is that everyone is a raw material and not a finished product. So human resource management in kingdom is that capacity to understand that this man is not a finished product. It's just a raw material. We must not capitalize on the dross, we must capitalize on the goal. He has a goal within him, but he's just a raw material. He looks too raw, and we have to work it. A manager has to work the raw material to finished product. You must understand the people. We must understand how fragile every raw material is. We must understand that the tools used to work on every material are not the same. There's a saying that if the only tool a man has, a carpenter has, is a hammer, he tends to treat everything like a nail. He hammers on the glass, hammers on the wood, hammers on the nail, hammers on the everything, hammers on the plastic, because the only tool he has is a hammer. So when we understand the people's frailty and their weaknesses, we understand the various tools we implement to see that we have them. Jesus rebuked Peter, but the rebuke he gave to Peter, he could not give to Matthew, because Matthew could not stand it. He called Peter, he said, "Get behind me, you devil." It was another disciple. That disciple would have exited totally, but Peter followed, because the tool, the way he used for Peter, he will not use for another disciple, for Bartholomew or others. We also understand that each man's area of talent and expertise. That's how you, in understanding human resource management, kingdom human resource management, we understand each man's area of talent and expertise. If this is not understood, positioning for effective functioning will be a problem. There are some people with underdeveloped talents which need to be discovered. There are others who by temperament hide their talents. Most introverts, introverts hide their talents. You can never know who an introvert is until you draw closer, until a situation arises before you know this introvert can do this or can do that. Number 3 or number 2. So we've talked about understanding. We said human resource management is the skill of understanding the people, caring and developing them, and organizing them for kingdom productivity. So by developing them, we mean we first develop ourselves as leaders. You can't develop people until you develop yourselves. You develop yourselves by following other leaders. You develop yourselves by looking at areas of leadership that you have weaknesses in, and you begin to develop those areas. Some may be anger, some may be some other things. You begin to work on those areas. Some ways you speak. A lot of people don't know that as a leader, you have to develop even in the area of approach, manners of approach. You have to develop in that area and willingly and deliberately do it. So you can't develop people until you develop yourself. By development, we coach and encourage or motivate than dictate and criticize. You can't develop a people when you dictate on them every day. No. You coach and you encourage. You motivate. You build. You can do 70% coaching and motivation and 20% or 30% dictating. Any leader who uses the rule will always break the people. It has been realized that many a people or many a person is ruined by criticism and excess praise. Yeah, some people think that praise people and you will destroy them. No, most people have been ruined by excess criticism than excess praise. A leader whose main measure of development is scolding and reproof is like a carpenter whose only tool is hammer. He tends to treat everything as a nail. By developing, we separate the mistakes committed or bad attitude from the person. A person can do something wrong, but a great leader will separate the wrong from the person himself. Learn to point at the wrong, rebuke the wrong, correct the wrong, but leave the person. I take a simple example. When we treat issues impersonal. For example, somebody did something that was bad. He came into the organization and said something, or to the church or to the group, and said something that was bad. And a great leader will go into that to correct what was said. I said, this thing you said was wrong. This is the reason why it's wrong, and I will not want to get this kind of thing again in this forum, in this group, or in this church, in this organization. I will not want to get it again, because these are the repercussions, and I repeat, I will not want to get it again, with very severity. But a poor leader will come and say, why did you say this kind of thing? In fact, that is stupidity. Don't you think that you are expressing your stupidity and your ignorance? Now, that leader is not affecting or is not handling the issue, is affecting the person. So a great leader will learn to handle issues and separate the person. You have an issue with your wife, your wife has done something wrong. Rather than correcting the issues and shouting and say this thing is bad, I don't want it again, and if it repeats itself, it's going to raise fire in this place, he goes into If you're not a stupid woman, why will you do this kind of a thing? I always talk to you, it's just because you are blind to understanding. You've left the issue and you are attacking the personality of the person. A great leader will scold at an issue, correct it, rebuke it sternly, but save the reputation of that person. This is great skill of a successful leader. In developing, we develop by walking in the field together. A great leader will walk with those he leads in the field together. Jesus went for prayer meeting with Peter, James, and John. He always sent them where he would come later. He was always there doing field work with them. A lot of leaders, bad leaders, will always want the people, or bad managers always want the people to go and do it. They tell them go do it, but they can't do it with them. A pastor who doesn't pray with his Christians, who asks the Christians to pray and cannot pray with them, cannot fast with them, a pastor who cannot worship with them, a pastor who cannot go for evangelism with them, a pastor who cannot do a thing in the field with them, is a poor pastor. It's a poor leader. Whether an elder, a deacon, a deaconess, you are a poor one. To develop, we develop by keeping them in the right frame of mind so that they can discharge their duty. You can never help a people until you keep them in the right frame of mind. Leadership is a capacity to keep those who are following you in the right frame of mind so that they can discharge their duty. Human resource management, the human resource manager is there to see how the family affairs of his workers are, because if a man carries a grudge back home and brought it to the workplace, it affects his productivity. Oh yes. And so he keeps the people in the right frame of mind. Any leader who doesn't care the frame of mind of the people, doesn't know when to say what to the people, always hit and get the people offended, displace their good frame of mind, can never have the people discharge the best. So you develop the people with the right frame of mind. You develop them how to handle issues. You develop them. A leader develops the people to think like heroes and champions so that they can display and discharge rightly. Another thing, we develop them by discipline. Until punitive measures are put in place, there's bound to be chaos. So you develop people by putting disciplinary measures. We develop people by incentivizing. So human resource management is the capacity to understand people, care and develop them, and then organize them. You first understand them. Mr. Leader, you first understand them. You're a woman leader, you must first understand them. You can never develop a people you've not understood them. You can never develop a people you conclude. And a lot of leaders go ahead to conclude on people when they have not given the people listening ears to understand why they do what they do at the time they do it. No, as a good leader, as a good pastor, you must understand the people, understand their weaknesses, understand their strength. As you go back to that issue of understanding, you understand their frailty, you understand that they are raw materials, you understand that there are various tools, and all the tools to help them is never the same. You understand their areas of expertise, you understand their areas of strength, and then you start developing them. You start by developing yourself, and number two, you coach them and motivate them, then criticize, and you separate their mistakes from their persons, and then you work together with them in the field. That's developing them. And you develop them by keeping them in the right frame of mind. You develop them by discipline. You develop them by incentivizing them. When they do a thing, you give some little rewards and make sure they feel good about it. And then can you organize them. Until you understand the people, until you develop them, you cannot organize them. By organizing them, women, we put people in their areas of expertise. When we come to a point where familiarity gets set in, where you take somebody who is not in that area of expertise, but because you have special inclinations, and you destroy the whole thing. But when you discover the people's areas of expertise, you do everything to put them at the areas of expertise, no matter how close they are to you. It is very, very relational as a leader to maintain good relationship. But when you come to that point where you are not only able to maintain good relationship, you maintain good relationship, but in the areas of functioning, you go very administrative, then you're a good leader. You keep the relationship, you keep the bond, but it comes to administration, you put according to the administrative principle for the goal and the common good of the organization. That is a good leader. There are people who love to do some things but are not gifted in that area. Don't put them there, no matter how close you are to them, no matter their reputation or their pomp and pageantry in that society. Don't put them there. You don't take somebody because he was rich and you gave him the pulpit to preach. You don't take somebody because he was a medical doctor who came to church, or a finance controller, he can talk finance out there, and you give him the pulpit to preach. He has not, that's not the area of his expertise, and he cannot. Well, he can talk on finance and give lectures on finance outside, but not on the pulpit. He cannot analyze the scripture. So by organizing them, we create activities that bring an atmosphere of comradeship and grease, which will destabilize friction. To organize the people as a leader, you create activities. A leader creates activities that bring that comradeship, that friendship, and grease that destabilizes friction. A good leader will always create atmosphere. I'm not just talking about going for picnics, but picnic is one, but I'm talking about creating recreational atmospheres, laughing atmospheres, and some other atmospheres that detang tension, that breaks down tension and destabilizes friction. By organizing, we organize better when we plant the passion for the goal than the role in the minds of the workers. You can't organize the people well where you don't plant the passion for the goal. Any organization where you plant the passion for the goal and the roles in the minds of the workers, that organization dwells well. What do I mean by the goal and the role? It's good to be a deaconess, but in case the deaconess was not consulted and the women leader was consulted, when you plant in the minds of the leader that rather than the deaconess getting offended with the woman leader and letting that particular thing fail, that particular project fail, you plant in the minds of the people to value their goals than the role. Such that, okay, but if the woman leader did it right, okay, let's scale it through because we value the goal and the role. We can sit back and correct it later. But we cannot be at the verge of success, but because we are an organization that so much emphasizes the role than the goal, we forfeit, we create problem because a hierarchical role was abused, and we abandon the goal and the goal fails awfully. Amen. In the Bible, a people sinned by committing sexual immorality in the temple while Israel was grieving. Phinehas took the javelin. It was not his place. According to hierarchy, it was not his place. But because a goal was at stake, he took the javelin and pierced through these two people, and the anger of the Lord was appeased. Oh yes, because there comes a time when we let go the role for the goal. It's not always the roles are there to help to achieve the goals, but when the roles become too big than the goals, when we remove our eyes from the goals and put on the roles, we don't go anywhere. So we organize people to value the goals than the roles, and the roles are tools to achieve the goals. We sort out the bad apple. To better organize the people, we sort out the bad apple. What is the bad apple? In a basket of apples, any rotten apple will contaminate the others. There are apples that when they begin to get rotten, you can only get them out from the other apples and save the other apples. You cannot better them. The more you struggle to keep them, wipe them and keep them, the more they get rotten and they affect the other apples. If it comes a point where we cannot manage that bad apple, we sort out the bad apple. Sorting out the bad apple may not be driving or excommunicating the bad apple or the persons. He may be rebuking and exposing that particular wrong so that it doesn't contaminate the others. God bless you. We shall be coming to the full stewardship mindset. Amen.